Okay, well, welcome, students. We are so happy to have you for the last day, for the last session, actually, of Internship Week. We are going to start by launching a poll. So there we go. If you could please all fill out this poll. There are actually two questions. So if you fill out both the questions, please. Okay, we're getting there. We need a few more people to fill out the poll for us.
And Shiv, to answer your question, the 11 o'clock is a completely different presentation than now.
Okay, yes, thank you. All right, so we are going to get started. So again, welcome. My name is Jan Potsman, and I am an assistant director at Cal State Northridge Career Center, and I oversee internships for the Career Center. But our speaker today will be talking about LinkedIn. So this is about creating your LinkedIn profile as well as making connections with recruiters. So our speaker for today is one of our illustrious career counselors. His name is Daniel Levitch. And Daniel, after graduating from CSUN in 2004, Daniel went on to receive his Master of Science in Educational Counseling and Pupil Personnel Services credential. He was a program manager of a Los Angeles County Work Source Center and worked with the College of the Canyons Career Center before he became a career counselor for Cal State University Northridge. He has hosted seminars on networking, developing your online presence, the hidden job market, and more, all in an effort to better prepare you for the workforce. Also, Daniel loves good food, bad movies, and ugly dogs. Daniel, it's all yours.
I appreciate the introduction, Jan. Thank you so much. Pupil Personnel Services credential is definitely a mouthful, so I appreciate it. Today, I get to talk to you about one of my favorite presentation topics. I present on a lot of different topics, resumes, interviewing, but talking about your online presence, talking about building your LinkedIn page is a personal favorite of mine, mostly because it comes down to a phrase that used to absolutely scare the heck out of me, which was networking. I remember thinking, ages ago, hearing the term networking, and for some reason, I don't know if I got it from like a movie or a television show or what have you, but I remember thinking that it must be, fancy people and fancy clothes, eating fancy food and talking about fancy things. Like I had no idea what it really was, but for some reason I had this impression of it. And not until a few years later, when a good friend of mine had called me and said, hey, I'm moving on Saturday. Do you mind coming over and helping me move? There's pizza and beer in it for you. And I thought, okay, that's funny. If he didn't know me, he would never ask me that. He was able to leverage a relationship that he had built with me over time to ask me to help him move. And that to me became the first true understanding that I had of networking and the power of networking. So one Saturday later, 3 slices of pizza and a move later, it reshaped the way I thought about the topic. And LinkedIn in particular took those concepts and really streamlined them and made them so much easier. I am a creature of ease. Like I like things to be simple. I like to streamline it to make it the easiest possible method imaginable. And I think that LinkedIn took a lot of the ideas that I had sort of percolating in my brain and kind of coalesce them into one sort of, I guess, streamlined system that I think is not just simple to use, but one that has become so universal that I think it's the preferred method now. So let me talk a little bit about why even having an online presence is important. I'm going to share my screen here for a moment. Give me a second. And let's chat a little bit about why even having an online presence is even important. I'm a big believer in the idea that whether they admit to it or not, recruiters are Googling you. They, for legal purposes, they're probably never going to tell you. But the truth is that if they are interested in you, there's a good chance they are Google searching your name and seeing what's out there. It used to be really popular, back in the day when I first started doing this, to advise our students to just lock up everything really tight, right? To get really used to your privacy controls, privacy settings, and lock up everything. You had a Facebook, a Twitter, an Instagram, what have you, lock it up, lock it up, lock it up. But what happened was a sort of backlash, an unexpected backlash. I don't know, some people might have expected it. I didn't expect it. A backlash on the part of a recruiter where they would Google search your name. They would see that, your various social medias are locked up tight. And then they would start to assume the worst. They would start to say, well, okay, why is it locked up tight? What are you trying to hide from me? And so the sort of backlash to the backlash became sites like LinkedIn, where we can have a more curated, more intentional experience, where we can lock up our regular social media and then still have something like LinkedIn to be able to show the recruiters that I do indeed exist. Because if you don't have an online presence, if they Google search you and they're not finding anything, that's detrimental to your chances of getting that job. So what you really want to do is have an online presence through a portfolio type site like LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn's great because you can use it as a portfolio. You can demonstrate, what it is you're able to do. And in addition to it being a portfolio, has a networking function where you can meet people in the field that you otherwise would not have known to begin with. Now, I should say at this point that if you've got questions throughout this presentation, feel free to throw them in the chat. We have a chat moderator. Her name is Janelle. She's fantastic, and she's going to go ahead and read them out loud to me. And I'm happy to kind of make this more conversational rather than have me sort of monologuing here for an hour, which nobody really wants. So let's go on here. Give me one moment. All right. So one of the things that I get as a counselor on a fairly regular basis is the question of how I go about finding work, right? Maybe I'm getting ready to graduate. Maybe I'm in the middle of my college experience and I need a job right now. What's the best way to go about work? And what the most common, what's the most common thought process in this field is oftentimes to go back to an online job database like an Indeed, which is an aggregate site for places like Monster or Career Builder. And so a lot of my students will say, well, I just go ahead and go on Indeed, right? And I've just been searching and unfortunately I'm just not finding anything. Why? Well, Indeed and sites like that have done an incredible job of marketing to this next generation of students and have convinced a whole generation of people that that's the way we look for work, that we just jump on there, use the search function, submit our resume, cross our fingers and hope, right? But the truth is that on sites like Indeed or Career Builder, Monster, what have you, you're only getting a very small portion of the available jobs that are out there, right? So you can see here, as far as advertised jobs or the open job market, only about 1 in every 5 jobs are available or even seen on a job site like we just mentioned, which leaves, if you're only using that as your primary job search function, it leaves you about 80% of the jobs that are even out there. 4 in every 5 jobs are even out there that you're not even getting access to because you're limiting your job search to a website like an Indeed. So the real question then becomes, how do I access that other 80%? And the truth is that it comes down to networking. It comes down to meeting people in the field, developing that relationship with them, and then leveraging that relationship into potential mentorship opportunities, volunteerism, potential internships where you can meet people, where they can get to know you. And then instead of you just applying to a job blindly, submitting your resume and hoping, now you've got the exact opposite happening. You have somebody in the industry who could say, hey, Daniel, now that we know each other, I'd love to actually, do you mind getting me a copy of your resume? I'd love to actually put you in for this job, because most jobs are either on a recommended basis or discovered through someone we know in the field. Let's do this. We're going to talk a little bit about how to not just build your LinkedIn, but actually use the networking function that we're talking about to actually tap into second degree connections. And second degree connections is a term that took me a second to figure out what it meant. But really, when you connect with people on LinkedIn, there's always going to be a value of having them connected. But the truth is, if I'm connecting with you on LinkedIn, I probably already know you. What's of particular interest to me are the people that you know, right? Those are called your second degree connections. And being able to leverage that, being able to utilize that to your advantage is one of LinkedIn's primary features. Let me go ahead and bring up my LinkedIn page here. Stop sharing here. Share screen. All right, so this is my LinkedIn page. Now, I've been doing this for a little while now. I've got about 373 connections. That didn't happen overnight. That happened over the course of about 10 years of me actively connecting with people that I've met, whether it's at conferences, whether it's possibly classmates, coworkers. I'm constantly connecting with people. One of the questions I get a lot with LinkedIn when somebody has a LinkedIn page is, should I just connect with everybody and anybody? I tend to be a safety first kind of a person, so I like to at least know the individual that I'm connecting with before I just connect with them. And there is actually a functional reason for that as well, and that's when I'm reaching out to them in a networking capacity, it's important to have an idea of who they are so that you can have a stronger relationship develop, so that you can actually ask them to introduce you to one of their friends. If I didn't know them, they'd be much less likely to do so. So the first thing you're going to see on a standard LinkedIn page is what? My photo. On a resume, photos are you don't put your photo on your resume, but the sort of kind of catch-22 there, the sort of the loophole, if you will, is that it's becoming increasingly common now to put a LinkedIn URL on your resume so that a recruiter can look at your resume, click the URL, and use your LinkedIn page to really breathe life into your resume. You say that you're good at something on your resume. Well, you could show it on your LinkedIn page by using photos, videos, documents. You can upload a variety of very visual elements to help sort of expand on what it is that you're claiming on your resume. For a recruiter, that's gold, right? In the olden days, people used to look at your resume and recruiter would say, well, they say they're good at Excel. I hope that's true. And then they would have to make a multiple $1,000 decision based on that. Now, recruiters have the advantage of not just taking your word for it, but going to your LinkedIn page and seeing if there are other people who can vouch for what you're saying through letters of recommendations and endorsements, which I'm going to go into in a moment here. So in addition to the photo, you also have this sort of banner behind me. What's really important to note about the photo and the banner is that it's the first, not just the first thing that somebody will see, that a recruiter will see, but also the first sort of immersive experience. You want to draw them into whatever it is that you're looking to try to build about yourself, because it's all about building an intentional impression, right? So I have here a fairly conservative photo of myself. It has a nice infinite white background. A lot of the time, the Career Center, when we have events in person, so keep an eye out for it, we'll actually have a photo, like a photo booth sort of set up where they can take LinkedIn photos. It's a great opportunity. So make sure you're following our social media feeds just to see, as we transition back into an in-person environment, we may be bringing that back. So make sure you're keeping tabs on that. The next thing you're going to see here is that banner behind me. The banner is the first thing that somebody sees that really puts you in your place of business. In my case, I work at CSUN, so I'm putting that there. I'm a counselor at CSUN. I'm showing that I'm a counselor at CSUN by having a picture of the library behind me. In your case, I actually have a good friend of mine who is an audio engineer and has a mixing board, a really nice, beautiful close-up of a mixing board, an audio mixing board behind them right there. So think what photo represents your industry, and you could use that photo as your background banner. The next thing you're going to notice underneath my name is the title, which says here, Career Counselor, California State University, Northridge. These titles can be aspirational. For example, you can put, even if you're not a professional in your field yet, but you are in that field, you can put that as your job title. For example, I have Career Counselor in me. Once I graduated with my degree in counseling, I was able to put counselor, even if I wasn't yet a professional paid counselor yet. So the titles can be aspirational as well. The next thing you're going to notice here is the About section. The About section is probably the closest equivalent is that of a cover letter, but unlike a cover letter, which you're really going to tailor to a specific job, this is going to be more of a bio. It's going to be a little bit about yourself. Generally speaking, the method to follow will be sort of a beginning, middle, and end approach to kind of structure it. Beginning meaning what got you interested in this field to begin with. Middle, what did you decide to do about it? And end, where do you want to go with that? So it's a great way to sort of use your about section to kind of structure a little bit about yourself. It's a great place to put, to really convey your passion for a particular industry. And then underneath that, you've got a featured section. What I love about the featured section is that, exactly as I said earlier, it breathes life into whatever it is you're claiming on your resume. Here I have, for example, an image of me working at a job fair, which is one thing I do as a career counselor at CSUN. I have a shot of me here presenting. I probably should get a screen grab of this particular moment and then throw that on my LinkedIn as well, because it's an example of me maybe presenting virtually, which is something I might want to put on my LinkedIn page. Under the featured section, you can put stills, photos, you can put video, and you can put documents. I recommend mixing it up a little bit. And for a lot of us, we may be thinking to ourselves, well, I don't have any photos of me, on the job or perhaps at an internship. Start now. Start collecting those photos now. If you need to recreate some photos, you can go ahead and do that and start getting them up on LinkedIn now. It's a lot harder after the fact to start collecting that material. So I would start right now, start thinking about what is going to convey you in action, what's going to put you on the job.
Daniel, we have a question from the chat. So someone asks, does the about section have to be in third person?
It doesn't. Great question. I've seen them both in first person and third person. And I actually just double checked that research before this presentation. And while third person is the more standard of the two, both are accepted. Great question. All right, so this next section here is probably really an underestimated aspect of LinkedIn, because one of the things I'll ask my students is how many people out there have a LinkedIn page? And I'll get a lot of answers, right? Usually I'll get about 40% of a classroom might say, like, oh, I have a LinkedIn. And then my follow-up question to that is, how many people out there are using their LinkedIn page? And you'll see those hands drop so fast, like, oh, I have it, but I'm not actually using it. It's just sort of sitting there. The activity section will show recruiters how active you are on your social media. And that's such an important thing to be able to convey. And that is whether you're commenting on somebody's page, whether you're posting material, whether you're reposting material, it will show recruiters that you're utilizing it and that you're active on social media, and not just active on social media, but active on in a networking capacity. And that's a really valuable skill to have from a recruiter standpoint. The experience section is probably the closest to what you'd find on a resume, in that you'll put your job title, you'll put where you worked, how long you worked there. But unlike a resume, and you also put your job duties there, unlike a resume, again, you can really visualize it here by putting multiple photos of you on the job, as you can see here, I did. Same thing here with the education section. If you're part of any sort of clubs or organizations, you can really fill this out by putting your GPA and various organizations you're a part of. Janelle, was there another question?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I thought I heard, yeah.
Someone asks, is it bad if you're not super active in social media?
Is it bad? I wouldn't go so far as to say it's bad, but I will say it's good if you are. I think that it's important to have a social media presence for recruiters to be able to see that you're out there. But when it comes to having a social media presence, I think it's like having the cherry on top of a sundae, of an ice cream sundae. I think it's a much better thing to have. And then this is where things really start to differentiate. When you have skills and endorsements, on a typical resume, I might have a relevant skills section, which is going to be really common. But on my LinkedIn page, I have a skills and endorsements section where I list a variety of skills, and then passively, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to reach out to anyone and ask them to endorse me. When somebody comes to my page, they can actually decide whether or not they agree with me. So here I have this person, I have Meryl Simon, who saw that I put down career counseling, and she decided to say, you know what, I agree. I think Daniel's good at this, and went ahead and endorsed me for that. You can see here, Nyla Jelly Dalfaris, did the same thing here for resume writing and went ahead and endorsed me there. So I have 62 people here who have endorsed me on career counseling, 53 people here for resume writing, and I have a variety of different skills here that I post. This is, when I say something is like gold for recruiters, this is the top of the line. No longer do recruiters just have to, again, assume that you can do what you're saying you can do. You have 62 people here who are agreeing with you. And so that helps them make a very important financial decision. For a recruiter, the most important thing for a recruiter is finding somebody who is going to do the job well, and stay at the job for a period of time. For a recruiter, my wife was a recruiter for a period of time, and she got evaluated based on an employee's ability to do the job and stay at that job for a period of time. So when they're making a decision, they're doing so delicately. They are taking all the information that they have and extrapolating that information. And they are much more likely to believe that you are good at, for example, career counseling, if 62 other people are saying, yep, thumbs up, I agree with that. If you want to get into a little more depth, there's two ways to do it. We have this recommendation section here where you can actually reach out to an individual in your field and ask them for a recommendation. And they can write a recommendation on your LinkedIn page. Another way to go about doing it is, like I mentioned earlier, there is a documents section. You can put documents on either your education, you can put documents on your featured section or your employment section, and you can actually upload a letter of recommendation as a document there as well, or you can use the LinkedIn section here, recommendations, to fill out, to get a recommendation, to solicit that recommendation. The other thing I want to show you on the LinkedIn page is the interests page. I love interests because it's been so simplified that all I need to do is go to this search function up here, type in an organization that I'm interested in knowing more about, click follow, and it will show up in my interest page for recruiters to see. That is incredibly streamlined, incredibly easy, and right up my alley, right in my wheelhouse. So you can see here that I have a number of different interests and individuals that I follow that show up in my interests section here. It's a great way to sort of fill out your LinkedIn page, and kind of a perfect transition here. It allows LinkedIn to, I got somebody writing a bunch of smiley faces here. Let me go ahead and stop sharing for a moment. So it allows you to really, it allows LinkedIn to really customize your page to you. So when you have, for example, various interests, or you have, using key terms in your about section and your job description, when you have those key terms, let me see your screen broadcast. Oh, when you have those key terms, LinkedIn actually scans those terms and will customize various news to you. It'll customize here. In fact, let me actually show you. I'll bring that up for you. Give me a second. All right, so you can see here that it is, when I go to so I showed you my forward-facing page. This is the page that only I can see. And you can see here, there's LinkedIn news here, and it will customize LinkedIn news specifically for me based on the key terms that it sees on my LinkedIn page. And I have today's top courses. Under today's top courses, it looks through my LinkedIn page, and my top courses won't be the same as somebody else's top courses because it is customizing them directly to me. It's a great way to, Janelle, was there another question?
Sorry, that's not me. I think someone unmuted in the chat.
Sure. Was there a question from somebody else out there? So as I was saying, today's top courses are going to be different for me than from somebody else because it's customized to my specific pages. What I love about LinkedIn's top courses or LinkedIn's news is that when I'm going into a weekly meeting and I want to stay on the cutting edge of what's current, what's trending, I'm going to jump on my LinkedIn page and start reading about LinkedIn news in my industry. That way I can come into that meeting knowing what's happening in the world, and I have a lot to discuss at the meeting.
Also, someone actually does have a question from the chat.
Sure.
So someone said, I changed my major this semester and I'm now on a different academic and career path. I have a lot of internship experience that don't particularly pertain to the job type I am searching for now. Should I still include those internships onto the experience section on LinkedIn?
So LinkedIn works best the more sort of laser focused it is to your field. As you're sort of developing your LinkedIn page, as you're getting a clearer idea of the direction you want to take your career path, you can take that time to really customize that LinkedIn page to your particular field. So if you've got multiple experiences happening, so for example, before I was a counselor, I worked in the film industry for a while, so I had to make a choice on how I wanted to use my LinkedIn page. Did I want to add a bunch of film experience? And ultimately, what LinkedIn recommends is not to do that. You can add, if you have transferable skills, if you have, for example, communication skills or something like that that makes sense in the field you're going into, great. But the more sort of tailored you are to your particular industry, the better off your LinkedIn is going to be. It doesn't want to see multiple sort of competing industries going on your LinkedIn. All right, so I wanted to show you a couple of the really interesting features that LinkedIn has in addition to news that I think are worth mentioning. So you can see here that there's a jobs section on LinkedIn. If I click on jobs, I can easily search for jobs here in the search function. It'll also recommend jobs to me, which is a fantastic feature on LinkedIn based again on my key terms. And you can see here, let me bring up how I mentioned earlier. If I'm interested in reaching out to someone, so I mentioned earlier about how the best thing about networking is, one of the interesting things about job searching is that you can reach out to somebody in your network and meet somebody in your industry, which will help you go about getting that job. And LinkedIn is a great way to do that. For example, let's say I'm interested in getting a job at Disney. I'm going to type in Disney here in the search bar. Hold on a second. And type in Disney here in the search bar. Click on the Walt Disney Company. And then I'm going to click on this little section here that says employees. I see 142,023 employees. Wow. I'm going to click on that. But what I want to know is, who do I know in the industry? Who do I know who works at Disney? And I'm hoping for possibly a recruiter or somebody in the field that I'm interested in working for there. So I'm going to click on this part here that says connections. I'm going to click on second degree connections and show results. Now check this out. I can see here that I have a few people that I know that are friends of these people here that I'm seeing at Disney. And I'll show you, for example, I have, let's see, here we go. Brianna Ellers, who I've never met in my life, is friends with a friend of mine on my LinkedIn page, one of my connections, Priscilla Gubaton. So what I can do is I can reach out to Priscilla and say, hi, Priscilla, it's me, Daniel. I'm interested in, in possibly working for or making a connection at the Walt Disney Company. There's an HR specialist over there named Brianna Ellers, who you're connected with on your LinkedIn. Is there any way you can kind of connect the two of us and put the two of us in touch with one another? And Priscilla can help sort of make that soft connection, which is so important and makes it so much easier than just reaching out to somebody, as a cold call. It's one of the, I think, LinkedIn's best features, best features available. The other thing I want to show you is that if I go to my LinkedIn page, remember how earlier I mentioned that on your resume, you're going to want to have your URL listed on there just so people, recruiters can take a look at your LinkedIn page. Well, if you just copy and paste your LinkedIn URL, which is what I originally did, it's going to look crazy. You're going to have a bunch of numbers and a bunch of letters, and there's not going to be any sort of rhyme or reason to it. But if I click on my LinkedIn page, there's a little section here that says edit public profile and URL. I can click on that and actually customize my URL to whatever it is I want, so it'll look really nice and clean for my resume. And finally, before I wrap here, I wanted to kind of go over for a moment. Second, stop sharing. Bring up my PowerPoint. I want to talk a little bit about, since I mentioned recruiters, I think this is worth mentioning. So when it comes to connecting with recruiters, there's no cookie cutter approach, but I will tell you what LinkedIn recommends. LinkedIn recommends starting with what they call a wink, right? In other words, follow somebody on like maybe their Twitter page where they don't have to accept you, but they will see that you followed them, right? So now you're on their radar. They immediately get that message saying that they have a new follower, right? So now they're at least aware of your existence, aware of your presence. Then they recommend what they call smiling. Then you look at them on LinkedIn, because what's important to note is that on LinkedIn, somebody can see that you looked at them. And so now they've seen you twice. So now you're much more likely to sort of stick out in their memory. This way they can see who you are and then look back at you. They may likely look back at your page as a result. Then, and only after that wink and smile, that's when you're going to want to go in and connect with them. You're going to connect with a recruiter by clicking on their name, opening their profile, and then writing a personal message. Once you can add a personal message to connecting with them, and let them know who you are and that you'd love to know more about that particular industry, or that you're interested in that industry and you'd love to connect with them. And when they connect with you, when they accept your connection, then you can go to their page, click on their contact info, and actually access their email. And you can take it off LinkedIn. You can email them your resume and ask to be a part of their applicant tracking pool. And that's where you can kind of take it and to that next level at that point.
Hi.
Hi. Oh,
my name is Anne. I'm sorry. Can you repeat these last steps again, please?
Absolutely. So you're going to go ahead and what they call wink at somebody. In other words, follow them on another social media like Twitter, where they can see that they have a new follower. So now they've seen your name. They're at least somewhat aware of your presence. And then once you look at their LinkedIn page, and they get a notification, because for recruiters, they're likely to pay for a recruiter LinkedIn page. So they're going to see who you are and who's looking at their page. So now they've seen you twice, which means they're much more likely to actually connect with you when you click connect with them. And once you connect with them, once you click that connect, you can write a personal message letting them know who you are, letting them know that you'd love to chat with them, that you'd love to connect with them. And then you can take it off LinkedIn, because once you connect with them, you can actually have access to their email, because you'll get to open up their contact page, which you wouldn't have access to if you don't connect with them, and then take it to an email level, send them your resume, ask to be added to their applicant tracking pool, and kind of bring it to that next level.
I have 2 questions actually.
Yes.
So one person asked, should we try to connect only with the recruiter, or should we try to connect direct employees who are currently working in that industry as well?
That's a great question. So I would definitely connect with recruiters, but I think it's even more important to connect with potential people in your industry, because that's how you can develop mentorships out of them. You can set up a job shadow perhaps, or an informational interview where you can learn more about them and what they do. Once you set up a job shadow or an informational interview, you can, it's as simple as connecting with them and just saying, hey, my name is, in my case, I might say, my name is Daniel. I'm a student at Cal State Northridge, really interested in learning more about this field. Would you have time to just answer a few questions about it? You can say it's a homework assignment. You can say your career counselor recommended you do it, but start connecting with people in your field. Ask them questions about how they got into their field. Ask them questions about what they like about their field, what they wish they knew before they got into the field. Ask them questions about what makes for a strong candidate in the field, what looks good on a resume. Are there any sort of professional organizations you should be joining? Ask them questions like that, because the moment somebody in the field answers your question, they're now invested in your story, right? And so it makes it a lot easier to stay in contact with them, to build a relationship with them. And then as you build that relationship, you might be able to ask them to be a mentor for you. As opportunities start to arise, they'll have you on their mind, so they can throw opportunities that come on their desk your way. It's a great way to sort of connect with people in your field and build your network.
I'm not sure if you wanted to do the YouTube question first. Someone just wanted to know more about LinkedIn skill quizzes, if you have any more information. Otherwise, we can go to the next question.
What was the first question? Sorry, I misunderstood.
No, you're good. So someone wants to know more about the LinkedIn skill quizzes.
LinkedIn skill quizzes?
Yes.
Are you talking about something that I referred to earlier?
Not sure. They just wanted to know about the quizzes.
I'm not 100% positive on the quizzes, but what I can do is, if you want, let me put my email in the chat. I can do a little bit of research for you and then definitely get in touch with you. So hang on one second. Let me put my Daniel.
For sure. Just let me know when you're ready for the next question.
.edu. Perfect. There you go. All right, Janelle, ready.
So someone from YouTube is asking how to better prepare for technical interviews.
When you say technical, do you mean online interviews, or what exactly do you mean?
All they said was technical.
Sure. To the individual who asked that question, do you mind just following up exactly and defining it for me? I just want to make sure I'm answering the correct question for you.
Okay, they asked the question on YouTube, so we'll try to have them follow up and put that question forward, and we will. There isn't.
It sounds
the
like
next
an interviewing
question.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like an interviewing question to me. They might be asking about an online interview and how to best prepare for an online interview. In which case, I'm happy to talk with you at length about it. You can certainly request a counseling appointment, for example, by emailing career.center@csun.edu, or you can come into one of our drop-ins. We could talk a little bit more about interviewing skills. I'd be happy to talk with you about it.
Cool. Oh, it's engineering associated.
Great. So you want to know about how to do like an interview that's specific, like tailored for engineering? I would love to talk with you about it. Let's definitely chat. I'm in drop-ins on Wednesdays from 1 to 3. You just go to our main website and click the drop-ins link, and it'll take you directly there.
Cool. So someone else is asking, could you please repeat the questions to ask recruiters, like or direct employees, like how'd you get in the field?
Yeah, absolutely. Like job shadow type questions or informational interview questions. So yes. I love asking about what looks good on a resume, right? What makes for a strong candidate in the field? I think it's a great, something great to ask. What's going to sort of put me a cut above? And then I can sort of tailor my work experience, tailor my educational experience to that, right? They're going to give me kind of a cheat sheet or a blueprint to use. And so I love asking that question. I love asking about, what they wish they knew about the field beforehand. So now I'm getting information about the field as well. So that's always a good one. You're always going to get really valuable answers on that. What they like about the field, what they don't like about the field. You can ask them about current trends in the field. How is the field different today than it was 5 years ago? That's going to keep you on the cutting edge and give you some great material for interviews. So there's a lot of really good job shadow and informational interview questions out there that you can ask, certainly.
Another question is, if I'm a junior and don't have that much internship experience, only from high school and one from college, how should we go about adding, or what should we add in this situation on our LinkedIn account? I believe they're asking if there's not much internship experience to add, what else should they add on their LinkedIn account?
Sure. First of all, I would continue to gain internship experience, which is great that you're here for Intern Week. So it sounds like you're ahead of the game on that one. But I would not underestimate the value of volunteerism. See if there's opportunities for you to volunteer in your field. Jan, you could probably talk a little bit about micro internships, which might be a good fit here as well. I think that volunteerism will probably be a really good fit in this particular case.
I would agree. I would agree with that, as well as micro internships. If you go to the CSUN homepage, which is csun.edu/career, if you go to our homepage, you can find out all of our programs and services that we offer to you. And there is a kind of a button in the middle of the page that says micro internships. If you click on that, you can register with Parker Dewey. You don't have to remember that name, just remember micro internships, and then click on it. And we have a partnership with this organization that posts micro internship. So you can go on there, see what works for you. A micro internship is a short-term project that you work on for a company. You are paid through Parker Dewey, so you don't have to worry about getting things set up with all these different companies that if you're only going to work like 20 hours there, it'll simplify things for you. There's really good opportunities and it builds your portfolio. So yeah, keep that in mind. And they're all paid.
And Jen, speaking of portfolio, I had mentioned earlier that it's so important to be using your LinkedIn by posting content on your LinkedIn. I'm going to give a quick story, and that is I follow an individual on YouTube. I'm a big history buff, right? And I follow this individual who loves talking about medieval history, castles, swords, the whole thing. And he's not a professional historian by any means. He's just a fan of the genre. He's a fan of that particular setting. And I love hearing him talk about, various topics here to there. But he's done so much that he's posted enough material and done the research that just like you would put on your LinkedIn or another social media platform, he started to accumulate followers. People started paying attention to what he had to say. So much so that he would watch film and read novels and critique them. He would say, well, this was great here, but the armor was a little bit off, period. So an individual who is an author in the fantasy genre reached out to him and said, hey, as an expert in your field, do you mind if I hire you to proofread my book and make sure that I'm doing this right? That when I say that this person is wielding a sword, it's the proper kind of sword or whatever. And he said, well, I'm not a professional in the field. And he said, what do you mean you're not a professional? I read your stuff all the time. You're absolutely, a professional in your field. Don't be afraid to start putting your material on LinkedIn. Don't be afraid to start leveraging social media in that capacity, because you start to develop what's called an expertise in your field, and people start to look at you that way. If you start putting material out there, you start to be a contributor in your industry. And that's such an important feature to have when looking for work.
Great. Actually, there's another question on here from Kiana, and she asks, I had a recruiter from Facebook add me on LinkedIn. She attended CSUN and works in my desired career field. What do you recommend for a message I could send the recruiter?
So they reached out to you. I would probably leverage the fact that we're both matadors. I'd probably say something kind of light and airy at the beginning, like fellow matador, like excited, like conveying like passion and excitement for it, and say something along the lines of, I noticed that, that you added me on LinkedIn, maybe we should chat, and just kind of like keep it kind of light. But the fact that they did the heavy lifting by reaching out to you, you're kind of in a position of power there. You can kind of reach out in a more sort of excited and passionate way.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah.
Are there any more, Janelle? We're about ready to wrap up.
Someone just asked if you could go back to the last slide with your info in case they want to ask you directly any more questions.
Absolutely. Let me bring it up here. Moment. Daniel.levich@csun.edu. Feel free to email me. I'm happy to respond.
And if some reason you can't find that, you can always go to the Career Center homepage, again, csun.edu/career, and go under the About section. Daniel's information is on the webpage as well.
But I don't love that photo of me, so just email me directly. Nuffs.
Just in case you lose it.
Just in case.
Just in case. So I think we're about ready to wrap up, but before we do that, we have our poll, our second poll to launch. And so if you could please fill that out, everyone. Ooh, people learned. I'm always excited to see and
if there's something that I said that either didn't make enough sense or you wanted to hear more about it, feel free to email me. I'm happy to sort of expand on that for you.
Okay, remember we have 2 questions. So if you could please answer both the questions, it really does help us shape what we do. And it also helps Daniel know if he was on target with his presentation.
Absolutely.
Couple more people. We're going to wait for a couple more people before we end the poll. Thank you. Couple more people.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, so we will end the poll and share the results. So as you can see, they definitely got a lot out of this presentation today.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
So I'd like to thank you for coming today, students, for all of you that came to this presentation. I think it's vital for you to get a LinkedIn account and, start building from here. there are students that ask questions like, should I, they almost like they felt bad because they're not engaged on social media. But the reality is today is another day, and you can start today and start to build your profile. So thank you for coming. Thank you for attending Internship Week. I saw some names on the list that have come to other presentations, so I really appreciate that. And last but not least, I would like to remind you that next week on Tuesday, we have a job fair, and it is from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And on Wednesday, we also have they're both virtual, a virtual job fair from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. And you'll have different recruiters on each day. Remember, when you go attend a job fair, if it's virtual, you have to go ahead of time. You have to go ahead of time to see, to sign up, because it's all you have to do. If you wait until the day of, you may miss the interview that you would like, or that connection that you would like with the employer. There are 10-minute sessions and 50-minute sessions. So you can sign up for 3 10-minute and 3 50-minute sessions. So thank you, Daniel, so much for the presentation today. It's always enlightening to hear new facts about LinkedIn. He's our resident expert at the Career Center.
It's so easy. I'll tell you, when I first started doing LinkedIn presentations, LinkedIn looks completely different now than it did 5 years ago even. I mean, things change so fast, and it's so important to stay up to date with what's current and trending on LinkedIn and social media in general.
Okay, and Daniel has put out his information, so if you want to reach out to him, please feel free to do so. I also want to thank the rest of the members on the team that were streaming the service and posting it on YouTube. That's Anna Penaranda. I want to thank her for that. And also to Janelle. This is she's a brand new employee with us, and she jumped in and said, yes, I'll help out. And she was the one that was helping with the chat. So, so thank you all, and hope to see you next week.
Wait, and also to Jan, who put on one, heck of a week here for Intern Week. Thank you so much for doing that, Jan. Our students got a ton out of it.
Thank you, Daniel. All right, we're going to wrap